Though it's exactly what it is, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is more than just a dramatic reimagination of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein through a black lens. I think labeling the film as that kind of cheapens everything that went into it, from the acting to the directing. Still, that's the label that people are going to plaster on it, as it does move Frankenstein's laboratory from Switzerland to the hood. Let's talk about The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is new in theaters this week. It's available on demand in digital download on June 23rd from Shudder and RLJE Films. It's directed and written by Bomani J. Story. Vicaria, played by Layla DeLeon Hayes, is a brilliant young girl living in an impoverished, mainly African-American neighborhood in Anytown, USA, where gangs, drugs, and death has become a way of life. When her brother Chris, played by Edem Atsu Swansea, is shot by a rival gang, Vicaria decides to take the body before the police arrive and use her smarts to attempt to bring him back to life. But upon bringing Chris back, Vicaria realizes he's not the brother she once knew, but a powerful monster lacking much of the reasoning Chris used to have. But simple urges like revenge is one of the emotions Chris knows well, as those who caused his death begin to feel his wrath. As her family attempts to put their lives back together, little do they know, lurking in the shadows is the shell of the man Chris once was. While one might want to compare this film to Blackenstein, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is much more of a slice of life for the modern black American. The opening sequence has Vicaria and her cute-as-a-button niece, Jada, played by Amani Summer, walking through the streets, past gangs, drug deals, and street fights, discussing the periodic table and talking about the importance of going to a school. It's much more like the Black America films of the 90s like Boyz n the Hood and Menace to Society than anything like the blaxploitation horror films of the 70s. Director Bomani J. Story depicts the fleeting highs and the all-too-common lows of the life of Vicaria, who struggles in school with teachers who don't even try to pronounce her name correctly, a father, played by Chad L. Coleman, with drug addiction, and crime and death occurring on a nightly basis in her neighborhood. Vicaria is fed up with this as she has the know-how to see that all of this is very wrong, yet feels helpless at what to do to make a change. So Vicaria resorts to seeing her problems as a challenge for her to solve. She sees death as a symptom rather than a final end and sets out to cure this symptom. This isn't unlike Victor Frankenstein's motivations in Shelley's original novel, and what director Story does so well is really dig into the motivations of Vicaria and shows how her environment has shaped these warped goals of conquering that which, as yet, no one has been able to beat, death. It's a lofty goal, but Vicaria is one smart cookie. That doesn't mean she isn't without flaws, and that's what I found refreshing to see in Angry Black Girl. She is stubborn. She might be a bit autistic, as she sees life in a more mechanical way that may be manipulated, not unlike a car engine. But it's this view of life that serves as the spark where this tale ignites from. Story doesn't hold back in showing that while Chris is monstrous in looks and action, he's not the real monster here. Like Victor Frankenstein before her, Vicaria is the real monster in this story. Her persistence to beat death becomes all-encompassing over the notion of what is right and wrong, and I love it that this moral is something Story maintains in his own take on the classic tale. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is going to be one of those movies where it may have a cast of unknowns, but they won't be unknowns for much longer. Layla DeLeon Hayes is outstanding as Vicaria. Her rage and sorrow are palpable. She's fed up with all of this horror in her life and desperately wants to do something about it. Though she's very young, Hayes carries the entire movie with ease. I also really liked Denzel Whitaker's role as Kango, the gang leader. While much of the performance is full of puffed-up street attitude, Whitaker shows much more depth than I was expecting as the story goes on. Riley Brooks Smith plays Vicaria's pregnant aunt Aisha, who also acts as someone wise beyond her years. She might be just as smart as Vicaria, but she's more caught up in the world around her and simply accepts things as they are, lacking Vicaria's youthful enthusiasm and drive to do something about it. All of these characters are more than just your typical cardboard cutout urban people you see in cop dramas and cheap movies. The cast feels lived in, and spending time with them is both heartwarming and breaking as this family experiences the highs and lows of their lives. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is not a perfect film. It's a movie with a sort of message, but nothing is above criticism, no matter how noble that message is. The film definitely sags in the middle. There just seems to be a lull in the excitement somewhere after Chris is reanimated and takes his revenge, and before the bloody and tragic climax. It almost feels like a two-part series squished together the way the film is structured as Chris goes on a bloody rampage, yet the family begins to come together, suggesting a more happy ending. But after that lull, things get really good and gory, so that lag is only momentary. The other problem is that the script kind of fails to see the irony that is right in its face. Throughout the narrative, Vicaria educates her young niece, Jada, about how all of these scientific achievements have been made by black people, but the credit went to white people. While some of that might be true, it just doesn't feel like a black-made movie that literally borrows its story from a white woman should be pointing fingers towards others for lifting ideas. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is a very strong film and a wonderful debut of not only its lead actress Hayes, but Bomani J Story as a filmmaking powerhouse. I look forward to following both of their careers, and hopefully, Story has other dark stories he can tell in the horror genre. This one occasionally gets preachy, as it indignantly identifies white society as one of the issues facing Black America, but it also spends the bulk of its time showing how Black America does a pretty solid job of being its own worst enemy as well. The stark and vivid examination of the Black experience is much more horrifying than seeing a reanimated monster tearing people apart any old day. But the horror is pervasive throughout, whether it's communicated through bloody effects or sociological themes. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is a movie with a message, but it never forgets to be entertaining.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're